Fast Forward Productions. The women are speaking. What's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of the One Broke Actress podcast, an honest account of actor life plus a few lessons I learn in the process. I am your host, Sam Valentine, and I got a question for you. And I know some of you are like, I don't know if I'm about guest episodes, or if I don't know an actor's name, I'm not going to listen to the full episode. Listen up. You need this episode because what happens when all your dreams come true? When you book the job, you get the series regular, you publish your book, you get everything you've ever wanted, you become rich and successful. Do you start to treat yourself better every time you accomplish something, or do you raise the bar? Oftentimes, the answer is you are not treating yourself better because you accomplished a goal. You are setting another bar higher and higher every single time to where you're not sure what enough actually is. So today's guest, best-selling author of Radically Content and Main Character Energy, 2 books I love, and you will hear me gush over them in this episode. Jamie Varon is here to share her journey with self-worth as a creative. Jamie highlights the hurdles creatives face in validation and fulfillment, and we touch on self-worth and the impact of social expectations and personal growth that you need if you want to up-level at any point in time and living in that up-level at all. So we're not just moving from goalpost to goalpost, but we're living our life. This episode, my friends, is not just for actors. It's for anyone who is creative and struggling to wait for validation, and it is for all of us who are chasing our dreams and wondering what is on the other side and how do we get there faster. Trust me when I say this landed in your podcast feed or your YouTube feed for a reason. Ladies and gentlemen, please enjoy one of my favorite authors, Jamie Varon. Okay, Jamie, you don't know this, but I'm looking down at the PDF I pulled of all of my highlights and notes from both of your books I've read, and I didn't even know where to start. So I got to be honest, I've done 300, 400 podcast episodes at this point, and I've never been so concerned about not hitting on all of the topics I want to hit on with one guest. So thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much. That is a lot of scrolling and a lot of highlights, which I take very personally because I love highlighting. That is my very favorite thing. So I'm like, when I see this from other people, when they send it to me, I'm like, I am a highlighting queen. So this is right within my wheelhouse of my compliments that I love.
Listen, I just love that Kindle saves them all for me in one place, because if they didn't, I don't know what I would do with them.
That's my favorite part of the Kindle. Even though I love book covers and I love physical books, the Kindle saving my highlights, I'm just like, that's why I stick with you. That's why I can't quit you.
I can't. And that in the library access is just, the Libby app is just my dream boat. But just so you know, I also bought your books and send them out as gifts. So it's fire. If anybody's listening and feel like they're not good at gifts, if you read a book that touches you, give it to other people as a gift. It's such an easy way to like give a part of yourself and give something personal. I highly recommend it. But you, Jamie, I want to talk to you because I read Radically Content. I believe I found you through the Financial Diet podcast on YouTube, and I heard your episode and I thought, this is incredible. Why is this such a hot topic of being actually content in life? And it's something I talk to actors about on a daily basis because we're all very scared of being content. And I want to kick this off by reading one of my highlights because I think it just encompasses so much of what you talk about in this book. We're 5% into the book in the highlight I'm about to read, just because Kindle tells me that. And this is the page I opened and I was like, oh, this is the book that I need to read, that I need every creative and especially my actors to read. And it is this passage. I never wanted to be earnest, sentimental, or happy. Happy felt like giving up. Contentment felt like settling. I was supposed to be special, sad but accomplished, anxious but impressive. I didn't want to inspire anyone. I wanted to be better than everyone. Oh, God. How did you get to the place of realizing that this was an actual feeling you were having? And how did you put it into words? Because this resonates so hard with so many creatives I know.
I mean, I think I self-analyze like so much. It's almost to a point where it drives me a little nuts. But writing this book, I just wanted to be as honest as possible because I have read so many self-help books and like so many books that are meant to propel me forward. And I just felt like, where's the grit here? Like, where's the real stuff that we're going through? And for me, that was just such an important part to talk about because it was true. Like, I thought that being successful and being seen as successful was the most important thing you could strive for in your entire life. And it took me a really long time to just ask myself the question of like, what am I going to get? What is the thing that I think I get from this success? Like, okay, so then I tease that out. I'm like, I guess I get to be better than people, which in my mind solves my insecurity, because my insecurity comes from not being good enough. So if I can be better than people, won't that solve being good enough? And it's like, no, that's a lie. I've come to realize that almost everything that they say solves that internal crisis we all have to reckon with, which is like, what's our purpose on this earth? Like, why are we here? What are we supposed to do while we're here? How do we spend our time? What's the most effective way to spend our time? And I'm like, I don't think it's just to work to impress other people and get bigger houses and better cars and just be miserable in the pursuit of like a calling that we might have. I can't think that that's it. Everyone has this sort of questioning. Some people are just much more aware of it than others, because most people will just ignore it. That's why they love the checklist of like, here's how to be a successful human. You got to get this thing and this thing and this thing. And they're like, cool, I can follow those rules. I got it, you know? And some of us who really don't like rules, don't like being told what to do, we have to reckon with the fact of like, there is an existential crisis that hits us at some point in our lives of like, what are we supposed to do here? Like, why are we here? I mean, other animals, they don't have the level of consciousness that we have. Why do we have it? What is the point? And so I have been asking those questions since I was like 18, which is just too young to be asking those questions, but that's what I've been doing. And that's where I kept coming back to. I was like, there's just got to be a better way than the way that we've been sold, especially in Western society and within the confines of capitalism, which is just like, work, 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 try to be impressive. That's what I think social media highlighted, was how much we do things to impress other people. And social media was just a perfect way to show that about humanity, because it's been happening for a long time. So I really started to tease that apart, because I was like, I don't know how to be happy. I want to be happy in this life. Because that was the other thing why I called it radically content instead of just like content, is I want to be happy, but I also want to do the things that I'm excited about doing. Because we get so many different mixed messages. It's either like, go sit on a park bench and like do nothing for 3 years. I mean, I love Eckhart Tolle, like I do, and I get so much out of his work, but that's like not feasible for me. I'm not going to just get joy from sitting on a park bench. So, you know, or like Michael Singer, who wrote like Surrender Experiment, Untethered Soul. All he ever wanted to do was just like live in the forest and meditate. And I'm like, I don't want to live in the forest and meditate. So how do I do my life, exist in the world, achieve the things I actually do want to achieve that do make me happy when I achieve them, but also they're fleeting. And I know they're fleeting. And so how do I deal with all the time in between those moments of you get the job or you get the deal? Like, then I have to contend with all the time that I'm not getting the job and not getting the deal, and or it's worn off, or the achievement. So I was like, what do I do at that time? Because that was the time that I always got messed up, when I was always like, oh, we're in a bad place. And those were a lot of times, because your life is really made in the simple everyday, you know, especially like for creatives like us, the waiting is so endless and so insanity making that a day of waiting feels like a year. It's the longest day you've ever had in your life. And then you have so many days of waiting. So what are you supposed to do in the meantime? And so I thought about, I was like, I guess you got to figure out how to be both. Like how to have your ambitions, your dreams, your vision, your big ideas, because I don't think we should stop having big ideas. And how do you like your life and yourself just in the moment? Because I didn't feel like that was being answered anywhere, even in all the spiritual books. And I attempted in my book to answer that.
Yeah. The actors who are listening, I can feel their questions coming up. And I think the things that especially hit us hard is the fact that we don't necessarily get to go do our job unless we're given a place to do it. And so I think that wait game is waiting for permission, waiting for validation, and those things can be misconstrued often. What would you say to a creative who lives in that sphere? Specifically, my question for you is in that world of trying to enjoy the in between. I think the thing that comes up for actors is that we feel special because we get picked on the times to do our jobs. We can audition and we can do these things, but it doesn't really feel like we're getting to do the thing that we love doing until we're put on a set. Do you have a thought of response for something like this?
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, from my actor friends, I definitely know that this is very prevalent because the whole structure of the way that the auditioning and who gets to be picked and all the things is set up for this. I get it. And I also sympathize because it's not exactly the same with books, but it is very similar because I can write all I want. But to see, like, where is it going to go? Either I have to pick myself and self-publish, or I have to do the same endless waiting with the publishing. And one might say it's its own kind of torture because you have one thing that you've worked on for so long. It's not as easy to just do a different audition or get another chance. But what I will say is I think this is the ultimate thing that artists need to solve because it will be the thing that makes you give up because it's the worst feeling. Like you don't feel like you have control. And then you really do get kind of addicted to being picked, which isn't really a good feeling because it lasts for about 2 seconds.
Yes.
And then it's over. And you're like, is that a joke? I waited that long for that. So it's really tough because it's hard to make plans, like future plans. And what I have come to, and this is something actually very recently that I've come to because I've just come out of a 6-month agonizing waiting period that I was like, yeah, I'm going to give up. I value my mental health and my well-being so much that it's really hard to reconcile. And what I came to was no matter what, I got to have other things going on. There's a narrative with artists that we're supposed to be like all in, get obsessed, and every bit of effort and thought and everything should be on the art. If you're not doing an audition, you should be thinking about acting every second of your life. Yeah. Like you better be waking up at 3 a.m, worried about when you're getting your next job. Otherwise, you're not a real actor. That is the biggest load of bullshit I've ever heard in my life. I'm so sick of this. I'm sick of believing it. I'm sick of seeing it happen. I'm sick of anyone saying this is how it needs to be. Because it's just, even if there was some romanticized period in the past where this did exist, and maybe it did, I don't know. We don't live there anymore. We live in 2024 where there are circumstances that are completely out of our control. Not only was there a pandemic, there was also, when it comes to acting, a strike, which absolutely affected how everyone is. There's no pilot season anymore. So we have to sometimes not be so rigid about how it has to go or like some idea of how it used to go that we're not kind of keeping up, not because, oh, we need to keep up so we can stay sharp or anything, but just for our own well-being in life. And I think for me, what I always return to, even when I have these periods where I'm not there at all, but I return to, I'm like, okay, number one priority, my well-being. Everything else below that. That's it. When you have that as your number one priority, you're going to think about things differently. You're going to think about the waiting periods differently. You're going to go, what can I do while I'm waiting? And can I trust that when I get the job or, when I have that moment, it will be ready for me? I can just trust on that. And even if I have to pick up like a side job, okay, it's not a failure. It's just the way that it is right now. It all comes back to the same kind of core idea that like when you're picked, you're successful. And if you're not being picked, you're failing. And that's why the waiting is agonizing because you feel like a failure in the waiting. Like, of course, it's not just waiting. Every day is reminding you of this idea that you have. And I just think it's not true. It's just not true because we have people, even if you look around, we have people who have hit new heights in their career and they are constantly diversifying their income streams because they don't want to rely on other people to give them permission to work. I don't think that's just because everyone in Hollywood's greedy. I just think they see something we don't see. They probably had that same idea. Oh, I can just, I get picked and then I'm floating off into some different dimension where everything is perfect. I never have uncertainty again. I never have to worry about failure again. What a load of crap. I mean, you get up into different levels of success, your fear of failure gets worse. There's more people watching.
Yeah.
I was just reading an article written about Colleen Hoover, who had this, all her books she sold 43 million books. It's wild. She had a huge thing happen over the pandemic. And whether you like her or not, I'm not saying whether you should or not, but because of all the pressure on her now, she for now does not ever want to write again.
Oh, I'd love to read that
It
article.
just came out and it was like a very interesting article in the Texas Monthly. And because of how many people love her, but how many people hate her and make hating her a core identity around themselves on TikTok, she's like, this is not fun anymore. I hate this. And so I'm like, can we all just see this as a cautionary tale? I feel bad for her. I mean, obviously she's very successful, but once you parse that out, you're like, wow, I don't think there's an amount of books you can sell that makes you immune to being hated at that kind of level. And so to think that you get picked and suddenly you get propelled to this rarefied air where nothing ever hurts you ever again, it's just not true because you can't live like that. And so that's, for me, that was the promise of being picked, is that all that doubt I was feeling, all the fear of failure and everything, it would all go away. And I wouldn't have to try so hard anymore. It gets harder. I thought that before I started having books published, I thought that was the hardest because I didn't have books published. But now it's a different kind of hard because now there's different stakes. There's different metrics. There's different things that I have to think about. There's different priorities to juggle. I think of it as put it in its right place, not have it your end all be all. You can have multiple purposes on this earth. You could be, one of your purposes is you're an incredible cook or something, and you don't ever want to monetize that. Then you also have this purpose of you're an incredible actor. You want that dream to exist. And I was reading this book called Worthy recently that I thought this was one of those missing pieces types of keys that I wish I had known, is that there's a big difference between self-confidence and self-worth. You can have confidence in what you do, but if you don't have the belief that you're worthy, no matter what is happening, you're going to go up and down with success and failure. But if you have high self-confidence and high self-worth, the confidence piece can go up and down because that's skill-based. Maybe you need to learn more. Maybe you need to practice more. I don't know. But the self-worth doesn't go up and down, but we conflate them a lot. That we think that we're going to get the worthiness piece from the achievements.
You just said you had a 6-month kind of waiting period you were going through. Was there a way that you kept your self-worth high even when you were in this in-between?
I mean, that was the part that this waiting period actually propelled me to do a lot more work on myself and kind of get into different levels, because I strongly believed for so long that once I was a published author, I would never feel that way again. And I was post-publishing by HarperCollins.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, son of a bitch. Oh, no. I have to do some work here. Because I was like, wait, there was a fantasy there. And that was the kind of bad delusion. And not always. That was a delusion that I should not have ever bought into. I was like, why did that not fix everything? That is so stupid, and that was there's a petulant person inside of me that was saying that. And so this waiting period was really illuminating to me that I was like, okay, so now this is a new, because I wrote Radically Content before I had any books out. And so this was, Radically Content was a response to my life is not going the way that I thought it would go. And then all my dreams came true. And I was like, this is a different thing that I have to deal with. It didn't solve what I thought it was going to solve. It gave me, if I can think about it now, because I just started reading this book about the self-confidence and the worthiness. I was like, okay, getting publishing deals, it increased my confidence. Okay, I can do this. But it didn't do anything with my self-worth. And I was like, oh, that's the key, is that you can't use these external markers to have your self-worth increase. You can use it for confidence, which I fully believe, but the self-worth part is where I've always struggled of like, I don't deserve it. I'm not good enough. I need to change something about myself. It's not going to happen for me. No matter how much confidence I had, that always frustrated me. And so that's kind of what this waiting period was part of what propelled me a lot to. I was like, okay, so now I need to figure out how to hold myself steady while I'm chasing my dreams and going after my vision. How do I maintain myself? Because the reason I thought about quitting was I was like, is this how it's going to be? Because there's a lot of waiting in anything in creative work. There just is. Things take a long time to get going. And like, I just turned in a book, a novel draft to my editor. It won't even come out till like probably fall 2025. That's a long time to sit around.
Long time, yeah.
If that's my only focus and fixation. So I was like, you got to get yourself right here. Figure some stuff out with this, because there was some sort of belief, and I've talked to my actor friends about this too, that, they thought once they got that role, then everything else is going to get easier. And not even just if you get a certain role, it might propel you to other jobs. That's not even as certain anymore. Or that it just gives you whatever you felt was lacking inside with that worth. Like, I matter now. I'm special now. I'm seen now. And it's like, oh, I've been there. And it goes up and down with every email, with every rejection, with every yes, with every no. And it is brutal. Like it's like almost abusive to yourself to be that way.
Yeah. You're putting yourself in this consistent harm's way. And it's hard in this current world to not see external validation as goalposts and to set your own internal. And, it's something you said in the book too, was we achieve and accumulate, thinking if we get enough, become enough, impress enough, that will heal our inner wounds and they'll go away. But you're not the exception to the rule, thinking you can escape healing and achieve into your worthiness. So it's fun to watch you also talk about relearning lessons that you already wrote about, because it just makes me feel like, okay, great, I don't have to have this all figured out by the time I put it on a page or talk about it on a podcast.
No, Radically Content has been a confronting book for me, because I wrote it and then I went through like a whole test about it. And I think those are the best, like, it's my own experience. Like, people, they read it, they get to have their own experience, whatever. But me as a writer and as the person that lived this philosophy, I'm continuously learning new levels of this. Like, even just yesterday, I was having lunch with a friend and I was like, well, and here we are. I'm back to the Radically Content philosophy. I stray a little bit and then I have to come back. And also, though, I give myself a lot of grace because, and this is something that I really, really tried to get very clear on in the book, is that it's not our fault. This is how the world's set up. We don't learn it from nothing. We see what is being celebrated. And it's not our fault that we want attention or to be celebrated or to have recognition, especially if we're doing work like artists work. I get that there are some people that are like, I just want to do my art and I don't care if I ever get any recognition. Okay, most people are not like that and we're not admitting it. And so I think there's a lot of things that I've just come to accept now that I'm really in the active portion of following my dreams. Like, I'm not in the hesitancy. I'm like, I'm in it. I'm doing it. There's a lot more that I've had to learn because I have my own internal gauge of success, but I also have external gauges of success, and they're completely different. One of them I can control, and the other one I have to just know that I can't control them and that they could change at any time, and I have to just be okay with it. The same with learning this contradiction of self-confidence and self-worth, how they have to be separate, or how I can have a big vision and a big dream, but I also can love a small life. It's like, how does it work? I don't know, but I'm figuring it out, because I can't live in the 100%, go big or go home all the time. I want to go big and I want to go home.
I want both. I want both. For you, in your external versus internal validations, are there some internal goalposts you've given yourself that have made this a little bit easier?
I think my internal things come from, like with my reps, for example, this is a constant thing with the reps, right? It's like,
Yep. I'm just nodding along. Yes, yes,
yeah,
yes.
it's a tough thing to navigate. And even if you have good ones, it's still tough to navigate because they have their own agendas to deal with. And like, for example, one of my internal goals is like, stand up for myself and make sure my hands are in my work and that I am telling myself that they work for me. And I'm acting in a way where I'm gracious, but I'm also not a pushover. And I'm saying what I need, and I'm pushing through the discomfort of they're going to find me annoying. I don't care. I'm going. I'm asking. It's my work. It's my business. And I think one of my other things in an internal goal, something that because these are things, what I try to keep of internal goals are things I can control, not discounting and dismissing my business as a writer just because maybe it's not making the money that I want it to make yet. The money does not validate the business yet. There are startups out there that have been around for 10 years that still don't even make money. Are they not real businesses? This is so annoying with the artist thing that we have to justify whether we're an artist or not based on if we can live off of our art alone. And I have bought into it and I've shamed myself with it. And I'm just like I have chills because I'm just like, it angers me that I believe this or I let it impact me. And then I think about like, that still they don't turn profits that much. There are rich people, super wealthy people out there who live off of debt. Like they manage to figure out ways to maximize and leverage debt in order to continue their lifestyle. And I'm over here like, am I a real writer? Because I have to that I have a side hustle or something, it's like, oh no, I'm not a real writer. It doesn't matter that I have books on my bookshelf with my name on them or that they're in Barnes and Noble or at the airport bookstores. And it doesn't even matter. It doesn't even need the books. You don't even need that level of validation. But for me, that's been an internal goal of like shifting from, I'm just like, it's a hobby. I don't know what I'm doing to like, no, this is my business and we're going to treat it like my business. And my reps, they're going to treat it like a business because the only way you get to be the VIP client level is if you work from here. Everyone starts somewhere. And so, I've been challenging myself to make sure that my reps are at that level, that they're working at that level, that I'm operating from that level, that I'm not taking just what's on offer.
Oh, I was going to say, how did you start having these empowered conversations with reps? Because that is something we talk to actors about a lot. They feel as though they need to make their reps a lot of money or book big jobs by the time they can take up space in their email inbox or calling them, God forbid.
Actually, honestly, I have an angel of an entertainment lawyer who's been in the business for a long time. I was introduced to him over the summer, very serendipitous type of thing. And I feel like he is, in a sense, kind of mentoring me, is really showing me how this is supposed to go, even though it's not like I'm at that level yet where I'm bringing in millions for my reps. And I've said that to him and he's like, nope. They should never treat you like that. It should never be that way. This is your business. Everybody needs to be on the same page. They need to be discussing your business with you. You need to feel empowered to be able to talk to them anytime. If you're not, they're the wrong reps. He's just very hard line about this, which has been cool to witness because it's not about feelings. And this is something that I talk about with my husband a lot because he's like, your feelings are involved. And I'm like, well, I know because it's hard to not get your emotions involved. But I think that's why I've been really empowering myself to be like, it's a business. And I really think the people that do the way that we see making it, I think that you can tell that they treated it like a business. And I don't believe people when they're like, it was just an accident. Even if it was, they learn that they have to treat it like a business eventually, and they might be learning the hard way. And too many people have been screwed over by reps. I really recently, very, very recently, I had to do some rearranging and letting go of some people. They were just deciding that I didn't need to know things. that I needed to know. And they were
Yeah.
making decisions on my behalf that I was like, you need to talk to me about these decisions. I cannot believe that you would do that. And that was an eye-opening experience because I was like, they will get away with things. But here's the thing. That's why why I empower myself here is because too often the reason we're scared to call or all of this is because our emotions and our worth is all wrapped up in it. So we think, well, they're not calling because we're not important enough yet. Okay. Well, sometimes you have to act as if you are important enough and put the phone call in even when you're really uncomfortable. If they dismiss you, they dismiss you. You choose what you do with that information. I just think these industries are so primed to disempower the artists. And when you look back, you're like, they don't have anything to sell without us. Their currency in their job is our work. They don't have anything to send to casting directors, producers, nothing without your work that you do. They have no relationship with publishers, with production companies, nothing without my book. And yeah, maybe it's not like I'm having 10 people bang down my doors yet. But trust me, when I do, you better have been the good rep, the best rep that I had when I didn't, because that's the only way you get to go with me on the rise.
I'm going to use that phrase that we are their currency with actors from now on. I am obsessed with that because it's so true. We're the first to make ourselves small, but we also forget that until they make AI better, this doesn't happen without us. The writers, the directors, the actors, the makeup artists, like it doesn't happen without all of us.
And as much as they will try to disempower you because the reps and all these people, they're playing a totally different game. They're playing an assets game. They're trading assets and they're not the ones creating anything. So it's a lot easier to trade assets than it is to actually fucking make them. But we get the short end of the stick because they want to trade their assets. They want to be able to move things around for their little percentages and all the things. But we are the ones that allow ourselves to be disempowered. I think of it like this. Okay, say you're holding a pen and it's red, right? Like the pen is red. And someone comes up to you and says, hey, that's a black pen. And you're looking at it like, no, this pen is red. You're like, no, it's a black pen. You're like, no, it's red. That's how it is. If you have your self-worth, you refuse to be disempowered. Someone can try to disempower you and you're like, okay, sure. That's your perspective of things. And I noticed through my really hard truths over the last year or so, I noticed that there was a solid amount of times where I let myself be disempowered. I let myself be questioned. I believed a rejection. I believed that the rejection meant something about my value and worth as a person and as an artist. I took these things as a personal affront to me, and I acted in that way. And in that way, I gave them the power to disempower me. And when you refuse to do that, you step into something like the moment I stepped into this, one of my reps, I was like, you're gone. I can't even do it with you anymore. We're not playing this game anymore. I don't need to. And it was just like so obvious. And I have full trust that the next person that comes along is going to be totally fully aligned. And that's the ticket. That's the problem with waiting to be picked, waiting to be special, because the downside to the being picked, while it might feel good in that moment, then you allow yourself the sinking, ugly feeling of not being picked. And you allow yourself to be disempowered because you've given them the power to choose you instead of like, I'm gracing you with my art. Am I a fit or not? Does this align or not? I pick me. I already picked me because I'm here in the room or I'm here on the self-tape. I picked me when I started writing the book. So I don't need you to tell me I'm picked. And it sucks. I actually went through grief because I wanted to be picked so bad. My teenage self who got bullied wanted to be picked so bad. And I was like, I can't let you do this anymore. We're going to grieve this. We're going to grieve the feeling that you thought you were going to get from this because we got to let it go. And I was like, okay.
I resonate with that so hard because I think everyone listening does, because there's so many things that we thought this would feel like. And there's so many doors we thought when they opened, we would step through and be out of the room that we're currently in. When you start to realize, and I think I am coming from my mid 30s, so that helps, right? Seeing things with age and perspective and watching people go through a lot harder shit than me not getting an audition I thought I was going to get. You realize that a lot of it is just in your head. There was a period of time where I couldn't watch TV because I was so mad that every person I saw, I was devastated that they were working and I wasn't. And I'm sure that you've dealt with several things. Like, I'm sure looking at books when you're in the midst of trying to get a book made, it's like, how did you do this? Like, what am I even doing?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I've actually, even to this day, have a little bit of a hard relationship with reading novels. I think I'm coming out of it, but it's confusing to not understand why someone else seems totally anointed and you don't. And it's a sick, sad feeling. And you compare, and it's impossible not to compare. Like, I don't see the benefit of lying about these things. I'm like, of course I compare.
Yeah.
Of course I get jealous. Are you serious? I live in the world.